My name's Ayman Yousuf. I'm in Bachelor of Sciences, majoring in physical sciences. Within physical sciences, I major in physics and art sciences with a minor in economics. Here at MacEwan University, I work in the Parking and Transportation department. And I also sit as the Secretary-Treasurer for the MacEwan Staff Association. I guess if I said I took the wrong flight, that doesn't count, eh? Because that's what I usually tell people, but it's actually very interesting. If you asked me this like 10 years ago, I would have never thought of being in Edmonton. I would have never thought of actually being in any Western country at all. I'm from Kenya. But at some point, my dad hits me up and he's like, oh, Ayman, check out schools in Turkey and maybe, you can get into a school in Turkey. I was like, I already had background in Turkish because one of the junior schools I went to, they taught me how to speak Turkish. And I met a lot of Turkish missionaries that came to Kenya. For some interesting reason, I did not appreciate Turkey, only because they're not part of the European Union, I think, so you don't get to travel into all the different countries. So I looked at the next best thing. I figured there's this country called Cyprus, and Cyprus is a part of the European Union, so I applied to go to Cyprus, and my dad was okay with it. I got accepted to 2 different universities for chemical and industrial engineering. And then I was in Congo at that time. I just got my grades. So I had to start the visa process as soon as I got back to Kenya. Then when I got to Kenya, we get a phone call from my auntie. I'm part Belgian, interestingly enough. She lives in Belgium, and she tells me that she's like, oh, Cyprus is not politically stable. I had already done all the research. I was like, oh, this is the coolest spots to go, the best beaches and stuff like that, which was pretty sick. But yeah, she was like, it's not the best place to go to because of political instability. So my dad was like, okay, you know what? Because we don't have any knowledge about this place, and my auntie lives in Belgium, and it's a part of Europe, let's listen to her. And then my dad goes like, okay, what's the next best thing? I was like, anything than Kenya, really, at that given time, because I just want to leave, I want to travel. I was like, okay, let's look at Canada, because everyone goes to Canada. It's well known for like having the international presence. So I was like, okay, let's look at Canada. Where do I want to go? I did research. I looked at Halifax, Toronto, Vancouver. And then, interestingly enough, like a lot of those places were very, very, very expensive. But my cousin went to MacEwan, and she did this international program thing where like international students would live with her, or she'd be like the median that connected MacEwan University to international students. So my cousin goes like, okay, how about you try out MacEwan just for a year, and then you'll move to a different university. So I applied to MacEwan, they accepted me, and here I am. So I started working for MacEwan around 2016. I reckon I've been working here for about 7 years, I think, give or take. When I started working here, I was just a regular event attendant for the Parking and Transportation department, so we did like events and stuff like that. And then I was casual at that time. Then I got a position here, and I started working evenings. And then I got to interact with one of the custodial staff. We were like talking about like our history and stuff like that. And then at that given time, I haven't seen the guy again, but he was wearing a bracelet. So this is pretty much the symbol of like, tell me you're Kenyan without telling me you're Kenyan. So he was wearing the bracelet, and I see the bracelet, I was like, yo, you're Kenyan. And then he's like, yeah, you're Kenyan too? I was like, yeah. So we started talking, and then he introduced me to a lot more people from back home, and a lot of them are Eritreans and Ethiopians. But then when we got to talk and we got to share our stories, we were like, you know what? The life we lived back home and the stories that we shared about like how life was back home were very similar, and we were all excited to talk about like our history and our background and stuff like that. So yeah, that made me feel like, you know what, I might be in the West, and you know what they say, when you're in the West, you do what the West people do, but I might be in the West, but we still, like if you're an immigrant here or if you're a Black individual, you never forget home, So like the fact that we're talking about all these things, it made me feel like I'm still at home, I'm still chilling with my people. I do sit in the MacEwan Staff Association as the treasurer, the secretary-treasurer rather. And getting to that position, so the fact that I talk to a lot of custodians and I work the evening shift, and a lot of the evening shift custodians are from Eastern Africa, and that's where I'm from. So I got to talk to them, and one day they sent out a call for nominations to be a member rep. And I got to talk, I went around, I needed to get like votes, but I didn't know a lot of people like during the day. I didn't know a lot of like employees here. So it was really hard to get like nominations, whatnot. So I went to the custodians, I was like, yo, please vote for me. And interestingly enough, they did not hesitate. They were like, oh, we got our people are trying to do big things here at MacEwan University, and you know what? We want you to do big things because we feel like there's not that much diversity when it comes to these like these boards and stuff like that. And I was like, yeah, I want to see. I don't have the experience, but I want to see how it is. And they're like, okay, sick. Got nominated by the evening custodian staff, which is amazing. I got to apply for the member rep position, but then I was turned down, sadly enough, because the president called me into our office and she was like, "Oh, Ayman, we have four positions and 5 people that got nominated. So you have an option. You can either go for elections and still run for like being a member rep, or you can take this position being a secretary treasurer and you will get acclaimed." And I was like, oof, but I don't have that much experience. And she was like, it doesn't matter, we will teach you all that you need to know. I was like, okay, sick. It's always about learning. Never ask for less problems, ask for more skills. So I took the position. And then on my first day of showing up in the board, I look around and I see everyone. I'm like, holy, I'm the youngest person in the board. I'm the only black person in the board. So it's one of those things where you feel like, oof, this is gonna be interesting, you know? You're not sure how it's gonna be. But interestingly enough, everyone was so welcoming in the board. Like the board is comprised of like MacEwan non-academic staff employees and the executive director. And my input was actually very, very well taken. I would talk to them, and like every time they would always bounce things off me. And like even sitting in the board, I was like, yeah, I'm the token black child, you know, to a certain extent. I'm like, yo, equity, diversity, inclusion, me, you know? So that was pretty cool. The way they welcomed me, the way they didn't look at me as, you know, when sometimes people look at you as, again, the token black child, they didn't really look at me as, I looked at myself that way, but they didn't. They looked at me as this guy who's coming in with so much more insight that we might not have. He's a completely different generation because everyone in the board was way older than I was. And even like the way the non-academic staff body just welcomed me. My first AGM, I went up to that podium, I had to present the finances. And I was like, I don't have enough experience for this, but I'm here. And I talked and I presented the whole finances, and the feedback that I got from the non-academic staff body was just spectacular.